Hey folks, listen up close. It's time for us to burn off some steam with another cinephile recap. Now today we've got for you a horror comedy movie titled He Never Died. Have you seen it before? Well, if you did, then no worries. But if not, spoilers incoming. The premise of the movie revolves around Jack, a surly, cannibalistic vampire who has developed a unique routine that keeps him away from most human beings in order to suppress his cannibalistic urges. Sleeping all day and only going to a local diner and playing bingo at a local church, Jack is keen to spend the rest of eternity in a long, sleepy haze, only feeding on blood that he buys from a hospital. His routine is, however, ruined when he runs into mobsters looking for his blood supplier, Jeremy, followed by his reintroduction to his estranged daughter, Andrea. Let's take a little breather here from our recap right now to make sure that we're not going to be estranged. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and you like this video and hit that notification bell icon so that you know when another video drops immediately. All done? Great. Let's continue on with our recap. The movie begins when Jack is woken up by his landlady, who wants the rent. He reaches underneath his bed for a box full of money and weapons, from which he pays the woman. He also finds out what day it is before rudely closing the door on her. Following this, he gets dressed before heading out to a church, which he enters. Sometime later, he exits the church at the same time as some old people before meeting up with Jeremy, who has been sleeping in his car. Jeremy tries to exchange pleasantries, but Jack, as usual, is just there for business. Jeremy asks if he used to work for a miller, but Jack denies it. Jeremy also tells him that his internship will be up soon and that he will not be able to apply the blood anymore. But Jack is unconcerned, as he will only pay another intern. Jeremy also tells him that he cannot make the Thursday appointment, so he has to come tomorrow. Jack takes his blood and leaves. When Jack returns home, a young girl knocks at his door. When he answers it, the girl runs away. Sometime later, two men knock on his door searching for Jeremy, but Jack says he doesn't know where he is. They try to attack and abduct Jack, but despite a gunshot wound to the hand and a shot of mace to the face, Jack beats them up and throws them out into the corridor. Later that night, Jack goes to the Times Square diner, where he's served by Cara, the lovely waitress. She asks about his injuries, and he blames his landlady. There's something there between them, but Jack does not want to get close to anyone. She asks him if he's doing anything later, but Jack says that he's just going to bed. Dejected, she gets him some oatmeal. Back at home, Jack receives a call from Jillian, an ex he hates. She tells him that his daughter Andrea came to look for him, and he then realizes that this was the young girl that he scared off. Jillian asks him to help her get Andrea from a bar called Crackles before she drives home drunk. In the next scene, Jack arrives at Crackles. The bartender there tells her that she left with a man named Tim Dell, and after searching the yellow pages at a phone booth, he locates the man's address. Tim, who proves to be an older man, reluctantly tells Andrea that her dad is there. When he determines that she is fine, he plans on leaving her to her own devices, but Andrea decides to follow him. She follows him to the diner where she meets Cara. As he checks her body for marks, the girls chat and become acquainted before they make their order. Andrea inquires about his life, but it's too intense for Jack. Andrea is okay, and after the diner they go back to Jack's place. Later that night, Jack wakes up. He notices Andrea and fights the urge to feed on her before removing the bandages from his healed hand. The next day, he returns to the diner to order breakfast, but is creeped out by an old man sitting behind him. After the man disappears, Jack returns home to Andrea. Later that day, he goes to meet Jeremy for his blood, but he witnesses the two men from the day before abduct Jeremy. He follows them to their hideout, where they're torturing Jeremy. He stops them and beats them up, again, almost blinding one of them. After finding Jeremy's keys, he reluctantly takes Jeremy to a paramedic before taking the blood and returning home to sleep. Andrea won't let this happen, and she keeps talking to him. However, when Jack realizes that it's 6 o'clock, he takes her to the church where they play bingo. Andrea is curious as to why he plays bingo. He tells her it's because the people there do not distract him. After the game, Jack takes Andrea to the diner where they run into Cara. While they are there, a man distracts Jack by knocking Cara's tray over while another spikes his drink. They never notice, and when the men leave, Andrea invites Cara to come along to a bingo game with them the next day. As Jack reveals that he has not been on a date for 19 years, the old man reappears behind Andrea again. When Cara notices him, Jack tells her to ignore him and never speak to the man. Curious that she can see him, he tries to read more into her, but the ever-chatty girl asks him about his relationship with her mother. He tells her that they were only together for a month, and after Cara returns with their orders, they eat and leave. On the way home, Jack begins to feel the side effects of the drink, and when he gets home, he realizes that he was being followed. He leaves Andrea in the house in order to confront the men that are following him, but he passes out right before the men, before he can do anything. Believing that he's dead, they try to dispose of his body in a river, but Jack wakes up and drags one of the men with him. The others drive away, but Jack tracks them down and kills one of them before eating him, as the other one escapes. Jack returns home in the morning. After eating short, he struggles with the urge to feed again, and in order to prevent him from feeding on his own daughter, he tells Andrea to get out of his house because he never wanted her to begin with. Heartbroken, the girl runs away. Later on, he returns to the diner for his date with Cara, but runs off. When he returns home, he witnesses a rude neighbor yelling at the landlady. He decides to feed on the unpleasant man. In the next scene, he returns early to the bingo hall and plays all day. Later that night, he returns to Crackle's for a drink, but runs away when some women come in. He tries to entrap some people so that he can justify feeding on them. A man gives him his money that he drops, while some others who appear to be intimidating prove to be friendly. He is, however, placated when he comes across some young thugs who threaten to assault him. When he returns home to tend to his wounds, he receives a call from Shorty'S Crew, who have killed Jillian and kidnapped Andrea. They threaten to kill her if he does not show up at the docks. When he's done with his injuries, he returns to the diner where he meets up with Cara. After apologizing to Cara, he helps her deal with her crazy ex, who happens to be Tim, by spitting blood on him. Tim is, however, able to take the car, so Jack escorts Cara home on foot. She finds out more about him and he hints at who he really is. He has had many jobs in a long life. Impressed, Cara tells him that she once ran a failed coffee shop and is now working as a waitress to get back on her feet. They finally arrive at her place, and they share a hug. Still scared he may feed on her, Jack runs away. He returns home to feed on his blood. The bag it's in breaks, and he has to lick it off the floor. The next day, as Jack stalks a large building, the old man suddenly appears. Jack tries to go into the building, but Gary, the doorman, will not have it. Jack asks him to tell Tom, the boss, that he's there, but Gary tells him that Tom is dead, and Alex, Tom's son, is now the boss. Jack asks to see Alex, but when Gary goes to ask for permission, Jack breaks in. Alex allows this. Jack asks him if he's the one who kidnapped Andrea, but Alex denies this. Jack is, however, able to hear someone crying through the walls. He ignores the muffled crying when Alex tells Jack about his dead father and leaves when Alex offers him a job. After playing more bingo, Jack returns to the diner where he finds mobsters have killed Cara's boss and taken the place hostage. One of the mobsters attacks him when he goes to the toilet with an ice pick. Jack survives and kills the man before convincing Cara, who has recovered a car, to give him a ride. Moments later, one of the mobsters shoots Jack in the head, but Jack, well, he never dies. Jack takes one of the men hostage. He tries to take him into Cara's car, but she is shaken and will not move to help him until he tells them that they have Andrea and that he would give her $1 million to help him. Before they leave, he removes the bullet from his head. As they drag the unconscious hostage into his apartment, Ruth asks Jack about their missing neighbor, but Jack denies knowing what happened. However, the landlady proves to be quite zany, as she ignores the unconscious man on the floor and leaves. In the apartment, Cara goes through Jack's box and finds a picture of Jack in battle during World War I. He reveals he is Cain from the Bible and gives her the money before going to interrogate the hostage. However, after a series of unproductive phone calls, another mobster finds him, and Jack is forced to take another bullet to the head as he kills him. He leaves her in the hostage to leave before gathering his weapons from a box. Before he leaves, he takes off one of the dead mobster's fingers to eat later on. The next day, Jack confronts Jeremy, who is recuperating with a broken leg. He discovers that the mobsters were after Jeremy because he owed them some money that he used to pay for his student loans. He also learns that Andrea is at the Arcadia, a bar owned by Alex, which surprises Jack. He immediately returns to an exasperated Cara for help as a getaway driver who will take Andrea once he rescues her. When she refuses, he promises her a bag of artifacts that would make her family rich, and she agrees. When he gets to the club, Jack breaks in and kills Gary, Derek, and everyone else in the bar before finding Alex in his office. He finds a door hidden behind a shelf in the office. Behind the door, Jack finds a bound and terribly beaten up Andrea. Relieved but pissed off, Jack captures Alex before calling Cara to come get Andrea. He breaks Alex's legs before taking Andrea to Cara and tells him to forget about him. He goes back inside to torture Alex. He learns that Alex has tortured Andrea just to get to him because Jack murdered his father. Jack beats Alex up, and he shares how he was mad at Alex's assassination attempt as he's walking the fine line of sobriety as well. He threatens to eat Alex after he kills him, and just as he's about to kill him, the old man appears and stops him. Jack is angry because the old man ignored him his whole life and never intervened until now. As he rants in a rage, Cara returns and asks him to help her with Andrea. Seeing no way out, Jack agrees to follow her, but before he leaves, he tells Alex that one day he will see the old man. In the final scene, we see the old man greeting Alex. And that was your recap of He Never Died. Not your typical vampire movie, right? Share your thoughts in the comments section below as always, and make sure you subscribe to this channel, as well as hit that notification bell icon so that you know when the next Cinephile recap drops. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.